Here's a devastating truth that will shock you. There's one seemingly innocent habit that 87% of dieters practice religiously, believing it's helping their weight loss efforts, when in reality, it's the primary reason their metabolism slows down, their cravings skyrocket, and they eventually regain every pound they lose plus extra weight. This habit is so deeply ingrained in diet culture that most people never question it, even as it systematically destroys their ability to maintain a healthy weight long term. Are you unknowingly practicing this metabolism-crushing habit that's sabotaging your weight loss journey while thinking you're doing everything right? What's up, guys? The weight loss industry has convinced millions of people that this destructive habit is not only acceptable, but necessary for successful weight loss. They've built entire business models around promoting this habit because it creates the perfect customer, someone who loses weight temporarily, regains it when the habit becomes unsustainable, then returns desperate for the next solution. Meanwhile, the real science of sustainable weight loss reveals that this habit is the single biggest predictor of long-term weight regain and metabolic damage. The most insidious aspect of this habit is that it provides immediate validation and quick results that feel like progress, masking the devastating long-term consequences that don't become apparent until months or years later. By the time people realize this habit has damaged their metabolism and made weight maintenance nearly impossible, they've often repeated the cycle multiple times, each iteration making the next attempt even more difficult. Here's what makes this situation particularly tragic. Your body is designed to maintain a healthy weight naturally when you work with its built-in regulatory systems instead of against them. Every human being has sophisticated mechanisms that control hunger, satiety, energy expenditure, and fat storage. But this habit disrupts these systems so severely that they become unreliable and often work against your weight loss goals. The problem with conventional weight loss wisdom is that it's based on outdated theories that ignore the complex hormonal and metabolic systems that actually control body weight. The habit I'm exposing today seems logical from a simple calories in, calories out perspective, but it completely disregards how the human body actually responds to different types of caloric manipulation and the psychological factors that determine long-term success. Today, I'm revealing the one habit that's secretly sabotaging millions of weight loss efforts, explaining the devastating science behind why this habit destroys your metabolism and makes weight regain inevitable, uncovering the psychological mechanisms that make this habit so addictive despite its harmful effects, and sharing the incredible story of how Lisa, a 36-year-old marketing manager, finally achieved permanent weight loss by eliminating this habit and working with her body's natural systems instead of against them. The habit that's sabotaging your weight loss journey is extreme caloric restriction, dramatically cutting your daily caloric intake below your body's basic metabolic needs in pursuit of rapid weight loss. This habit has become so normalized in diet culture that people consider consuming 1,200 calories or less per day as standard weight loss practice, when in reality, this level of restriction triggers powerful survival mechanisms that make long-term weight loss nearly impossible. When you drastically reduce your caloric intake, your body interprets this as starvation and activates ancient survival programming designed to preserve life during food scarcity. These mechanisms were crucial for human survival throughout history, but in our modern environment of abundant food, they work against sustainable weight loss by slowing metabolism, increasing hunger hormones, and promoting fat storage when normal eating resumes. Research published in the journal Obesity followed participants from The Biggest Loser television show for 6 years after their extreme weight loss and found devastating metabolic consequences. Despite the show's dramatic results, most participants had regained significant weight, and their metabolic rates remained suppressed by an average of 700 calories per day, compared to people of similar size who had never dieted. This metabolic damage persisted years after the extreme restriction ended, making weight maintenance incredibly difficult without continued severe restriction. The hormone disruption caused by extreme caloric restriction is profound and long-lasting. Severe restriction reduces leptin, the hormone that signals satiety and maintains metabolic rate, while increasing ghrelin, the hormone that drives hunger and food-seeking behavior. It also elevates cortisol, which promotes abdominal fat storage and reduces thyroid hormones that control metabolic rate. These hormonal changes don't normalize quickly when eating resumes. Studies show that leptin levels can remain suppressed for up to a year after weight loss, while ghrelin levels stay elevated, creating a perfect storm of increased hunger and decreased satiety that makes weight regain almost inevitable. This is why most people experience intense cravings and difficulty controlling their appetite after periods of extreme restriction. The psychological effects of extreme restriction are equally destructive. When you severely limit your food intake, you create a scarcity mindset that increases the psychological value of food and triggers obsessive thoughts about eating. This mental preoccupation with food often leads to binge episodes that can undo weeks of restriction in a single day, creating a shame cycle that makes people believe they lack willpower when they're actually fighting against powerful biological drives. Extreme restriction also reduces cognitive function and decision-making ability, making it harder to maintain healthy habits and resist food temptations. Studies show that people in caloric restriction states have impaired working memory, reduced impulse control, and increased stress reactivity, all factors that work against sustainable weight management. The most damaging aspect of this habit is that it teaches people to fear food and distrust their body's natural hunger and satiety signals. People become so accustomed to overriding their body's needs through willpower and restriction that they lose the ability to eat intuitively and maintain weight naturally. This creates a dependence on external rules and restrictions rather than internal regulation. The diet industry profits enormously from promoting extreme restriction because it creates rapid initial results that seem impressive and generate testimonials and before and after photos. However, they conveniently ignore the long-term consequences and weight regain statistics that reveal the true ineffectiveness of these approaches. What makes extreme restriction so seductive is that it works initially. When you drastically cut calories, you will lose weight quickly due to reduced glycogen stores, water loss, and some fat loss. This immediate gratification convinces people that the approach is working, even as it's setting up metabolic and psychological conditions that guarantee eventual failure. The restriction binge cycle that inevitably follows extreme dieting creates a pattern where people lose and regain the same weight repeatedly, often ending up heavier than when they started. Each cycle of restriction and regain makes the next attempt more difficult because metabolic damage accumulates and psychological relationships with food become more dysfunctional. Let me tell you about Lisa, a 36-year-old marketing manager who had been trapped in the restriction binge cycle for over a decade. She had tried every popular diet from keto to juice cleanses to intermittent fasting, always starting with extreme caloric restriction that produced rapid initial weight loss, followed by inevitable regain plus additional weight. Lisa had convinced herself that she simply lacked willpower and was destined to struggle with weight forever. When Lisa came to me, she was at her heaviest weight, despite having successfully lost 30-plus pounds multiple times throughout her adult life. Her metabolism was severely damaged from years of restriction. Her relationship with food was completely dysfunctional, and she experienced intense cravings and difficulty controlling her appetite. She was terrified of eating more than 1,200 calories per day because she believed eating more would cause immediate weight gain. We started by addressing the metabolic damage from years of restriction. Instead of cutting calories further, we gradually increased Lisa's food intake to support her basal metabolic needs while choosing nutrient-dense foods that would naturally regulate her appetite hormones. This reverse dieting approach initially caused Lisa significant anxiety because she had been taught that eating more calories would automatically cause weight gain. The first few weeks were challenging as Lisa's body adjusted to receiving adequate nutrition again. Her weight initially fluctuated as her glycogen stores replenished and her hormones began rebalancing. But we focused on non-scale victories like improved energy, better sleep, and reduced cravings rather than daily weight fluctuations. Within a month, Lisa noticed dramatic improvements in her energy levels and mood stability. The intense food cravings that had plagued her for years began subsiding as her leptin and ghrelin levels normalized. She was sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more emotionally stable than she had in years. The real breakthrough came when Lisa realized she could eat satisfying amounts of food without gaining weight when she chose nutrient-dense options that supported her metabolism rather than fighting against it. She learned to recognize genuine hunger and satiety signals that had been suppressed by years of restriction, allowing her to eat intuitively without obsessing over every calorie. After 6 months of metabolic restoration and learning to eat adequately, Lisa began losing weight naturally without deliberate restriction. Her body, finally receiving consistent nutrition and no longer fearing starvation, began releasing excess fat while preserving muscle mass. The weight loss was slower than her previous extreme dieting attempts, but felt effortless and sustainable. Over the course of 18 months, Lisa lost 45 pounds and reached her goal weight while eating more food than she had consumed during any of her previous dieting attempts. More importantly, she maintained this weight loss easily because her approach was built on supporting her metabolism rather than fighting against it. Lisa's transformation wasn't just physical. Her entire relationship with food and her body changed. She no longer feared certain foods or felt guilty about eating. Exercise became enjoyable rather than punishment for eating. She could participate in social events involving food without anxiety or the need to restrict the next day. The key to Lisa's success was understanding that sustainable weight loss requires working with your body's natural systems rather than against them. When she stopped fighting her metabolism with extreme restriction and started supporting it with adequate nutrition, her body naturally returned to a healthy weight and maintained it effortlessly. Here's the framework that freed Lisa from the restriction binge cycle and can work for anyone willing to abandon extreme restriction in favor of metabolic support. Eat enough calories to support your basal metabolic rate, plus activity rather than creating massive deficits. Focus on nutrient-dense whole foods that naturally regulate appetite hormones. Practice eating to satisfaction rather than restriction or deprivation. Trust your body's hunger and satiety signals rather than external rules and calorie counting. And view food as fuel and nourishment rather than the enemy to be feared or controlled. The metabolic restoration approach that healed Lisa's damaged metabolism includes gradually increasing calories to support metabolic function, prioritizing protein intake to preserve muscle mass and boost metabolism, including adequate carbohydrates to support thyroid function and energy levels, incorporating healthy fats for hormone production and satiety, and allowing time for hormones to rebalance rather than expecting immediate results. The mindset shifts that enabled Lisa's sustainable success include viewing weight loss as a byproduct of health rather than the primary goal, focusing on how food makes you feel rather than just calories or weight, understanding that adequate nutrition supports weight loss rather than preventing it, trusting that your body wants to be healthy when given proper resources, and recognizing that sustainable approaches take longer but produce lasting results. The practical strategies that made Lisa's approach sustainable include planning balanced meals that include all macronutrients, eating regular meals to maintain stable blood sugar and hunger hormones, choosing whole foods over processed options whenever possible, staying hydrated to support all metabolic processes, and getting adequate sleep to maintain healthy appetite regulation. The warning signs of extreme restriction that Lisa learned to recognize include eating less than your basal metabolic rate consistently, feeling obsessed with food, or constantly thinking about eating, experiencing intense cravings, or loss of control around certain foods, having frequent mood swings or irritability related to hunger, and feeling guilty or anxious about eating normal amounts of food. The long-term benefits of abandoning extreme restriction include restored metabolic function that supports natural weight management, normalized appetite regulation that allows intuitive eating, improved energy levels and cognitive function, better mood stability and stress resistance, and freedom from food obsession and diet-related anxiety. The evidence for supporting metabolism rather than restricting severely comes from multiple research studies showing that moderate caloric deficits produce better long-term results than extreme restriction. Studies consistently demonstrate that people who lose weight gradually through moderate approaches are more likely to maintain their weight loss long-term compared to those using extreme methods. The verdict is clear. Extreme caloric restriction is the one habit that sabotages more weight loss journeys than any other factor. While it may provide immediate gratification through rapid initial weight loss, it sets up metabolic and psychological conditions that make long-term success nearly impossible. The scientific reality is that sustainable weight loss requires supporting your metabolism through adequate nutrition rather than fighting against it through severe restriction. Lisa's transformation proves that remarkable weight loss results are possible when you abandon restriction in favor of metabolic support. Her approach required patience and trust in the process, but it delivered lasting results that extreme dieting never could. Most importantly, her success was sustainable because it was built on supporting her body's natural functions rather than fighting against them. If you're ready to break free from the restriction binge cycle and discover sustainable weight loss like Lisa did, I've created a comprehensive metabolic restoration program that includes step-by-step guidance for healing your metabolism, meal planning strategies that support natural weight loss, and mindset tools for developing a healthy relationship with food. You can find the link in the description below. Have you been caught in the extreme restriction trap? What's your experience with very low-calorie diets and their long-term effects? Are you ready to try supporting your metabolism instead of fighting against it? Drop a comment and let me know your biggest challenge with sustainable weight loss. And if this video helped you understand why extreme restriction backfires, make sure to check out my video on how to eat more and weigh less, where I break down the science of metabolic restoration in detail. Thanks for watching, and here's to achieving sustainable weight loss by working with your body instead of against it.